Well, it's Monday, so you know what that means. It's time for an OTRSCentral Q&A. Do them every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Thanks to all of you that submitted your questions. You want your questions answered in the future? Check out all the info on how to take part in the description box down below. Let's get started with this Q&A, shall we? At Larkin _ asks, what are your favorite matches of each era, and what feuds would you like to see in today's WWE? This is a bit of a detailed question. All right, favorite matches of each era. Hogan, Andre would be the favorite from the Hogan era. From that New Generation era, it would probably be Bret and Owen at WrestleMania 10. From the Attitude Era, and let me switch back. I'll stick with Bret and Owen at WrestleMania 10. Austin, Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13 obviously would be in the consideration, probably be on a lot of other people's list. Maybe Bret and Shawn at WrestleMania 12, not my personal favorite from that era, but I'm sure for a lot of you it is. In terms of the Attitude Era, my favorite match would probably have to be Taker versus Mankind, King of the Ring 98. Ruthless Aggression Era? The triple threat at WrestleMania 20 that officially never happened, that didn't have an actual winner. In terms of the PG era, I would have to go with Taker HBK at WrestleMania 25. Feuds I would like to see today. Good question. I don't know. I really don't. You guys have any feuds that you'd really love to see? Let me know in the comments below. At the Den Sidron, where do you rank the Seahawks defense among the best NFL defensive teams of all time, like the Grits Blitz Falcons and the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the 2000 Ravens, so on and so forth? They probably rank in the top 10 in terms of single season units, in part because they did win a championship. They weren't that dominant in their two playoff games leading up to the Super Bowl. Their performance in the Super Bowl, I said, was the most dominant defensive performance of all time in the Super Bowl, and I'll stand by that. More dominant than the Bears in Super Bowl 20, more dominant than the Ravens and what they did to the Giants in 2000, because you're talking about the highest scoring offense of all time with the quarterback who threw for more yards and more touchdown passes than any quarterback in a season in NFL history. And the Seahawks held them to 8 bloody points. And those points didn't come until the end of the third quarter. You almost get the sense if the game was even close to being in contention, the Seahawks might have shut them out. That was the single greatest defensive performance in the Super Bowl that I have ever seen, and that I think there has ever been. So they probably, in terms of a unit for a season, probably rank maybe somewhere in the top 10 range. They're not one of the all-time great defenses for a season, but that Super Bowl performance, oh my goodness. At Michael _ Corvin, should Jacqueline Moore be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame one day? Sure, why not? They put Sonny in, so why not put Jacqueline Moore in? At Bauer24Power, if you could change any pivotal moment in pro wrestling, any era or company, what would it be and why? The day that WCW was sold. And I don't really need to explain why. That's the pivotal moment that I would like to change, that there still be a WCW around today. At John Cena is a tool. If LeBron James does leave Miami, where do you think he would go? That's an interesting question. You've heard some talk about the Clippers, which I don't think is all that feasible. I think the Bulls would be a player. I'm not sure how realistic that would be, though. The Cleveland Cavaliers, shit, stranger stuff has happened. It'll be very interesting to see. It will be the predominant storyline of the NBA this offseason, which is good for the league in the sense that they have a real buzzworthy news item that keeps the NBA relevant during the summer and early fall months that they sometimes don't have. The last time they really truly had it was 4 years ago when LeBron and Wade and Bosh and everybody were all free agents. At NewFlavor408, which superstar do you think dodged the bullet from being released this past week? Is Zack Ryder maybe? Yeah. Some of the guys that probably dodged the bullet at least a little bit, I would say Zack Ryder would be one. I love the guy to death, and I think he's criminally underrated and underutilized by the WWE in his commentator role, but Alex Riley definitely dodged a bullet. In terms of other guys that maybe dodged a bullet, Brad Maddox maybe dodged a bullet. There are some guys you could sit there and say they probably dodged a bullet. Let's see here. At ZeroCool1389, which would be the biggest insult? Dino Bravo in the WWE Hall of Fame next year, or Cena beating Reigns for the championship at WrestleMania 31? This is easy, and this is not even up for debate or discussion, and this isn't even close. Dino Bravo in the Hall of Fame is by far the bigger fucking insult. Because at least you could say, as much as it might piss you off, you would fully believe that a John Cena would beat a Roman Reigns, so it would not insult your intelligence. I feel Dino Bravo being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, however, would insult my intelligence and many of yours as well. So that would be the much bigger insult to me on so many different levels. Bang, bang, he's dead. At AK Warrior 78, do you think Bray Wyatt and Brock Lesnar can have a feud? Sure. I don't know if the dynamics would work all that well. I'm not sure that it would jive or mesh. I'm not sure their work in the ring would jive or mesh. I could be wrong, but could they have one? Yes. Would it be good? I don't know. And then you also asked what are my thoughts on gay rights and I'm assuming gay marriage, etc. Check out my other channel, Schleg Daddy TV. I have links in the description box, and you can go to the Stupid America series, and you'll find a video talking about just that topic. At Not Richard Pryor. So how long before Adam Rose turned heel and fed to Super Cena? Wow. That's quite the compliment for Mr. Rose. You actually assumed that they would push him enough to the point where they wouldn't necessarily turn him heel to feed him to a Super Cena. Shit, if he got that type of treatment, I'd be happy for him at this point in time. I don't see it happening. I'd see them jobbing him out and burying him off of television entirely before they turned him heel and fed him to Cena. At Ahmed_LW, pros and cons of a live Smackdown every week. In terms of the pros, another live show, which brings with it its own feel, a better feel to it. I think it would generate at least a little more initial buzz about the product. There are positives to it. The cons of it being, let's say if they did it on a Tuesday night, that's back-to-back nights of WWE. That's 5 hours of wrestling in a 2-night stretch. That might be asking a bit too much. If you do it on a Friday night, with the way they do their tours and everything, that might not be the most feasible thing to do either. There are more costs associated with doing a live show, but if they did the live show, maybe they would get more interest in that product, and maybe as a result, they'd eventually draw more people for those shows, and maybe it would be a win where it would negate itself. So there are some pros and cons. At K Lightning Bolt, in your eyes, who is the best quarterback in the NFL today? Best quarterback in the NFL today, for my money, when you factor everything else in, I think is Aaron Rodgers. Unfortunately, I have to watch my Bears more often than not, year in, year out, lose to the guy twice a year in the season, sometimes in the playoffs even. And I see a few other games of his throughout the year. And to me, when you look at the total package, the total combination of everything that he brings to the table, the fact that he's still a younger quarterback that still has some peak years ahead of him, I think Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL today. No offense to the Manning or Brady or Breeze crowd, but I think if you had one quarterback you could have right now, it would probably be Aaron Rodgers. Let me know if I'm wrong, if I'm off base here in the comments. At Antonio Vargas01, if WWE Studios made a film about the life of Jesus, which past present superstars would you cast as God, Jesus, and Judas? Well, we know the first two are fucking easy. We're talking about the WWE. You asked me a WWE Studios movie about the story of Jesus, who would you cast as God? In the WWE, who would I cast as God? Undoubtedly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it would be Triple H. Now, of course, some of you might bring up the fact, well, Shawn Michaels was there longer, and then Shawn Michaels is technically older. How could he only be Jesus and Triple H be God? That doesn't make any sense. Well, God doesn't always make sense. He works in magical, mysterious ways, and it is best not to question that in any way, shape, or form. Furthermore, who are you going to really believe as God? The only other person that might be able to pull it off would be Vince McMahon, but we got to go with Triple H here for God. As far as Jesus, it's got to be Shawn Michaels. He could pull off the Jesus look. As far as Judas, I think it'd be funny if it was either Randy Orton or John Cena. At David Allen Root, who do you think will become president in 2016? It's 2 years away. That's a lot of stuff that could be changed, but I don't envision a Republican at this point. And the only reason I say that is because of the reality of their lack of ground game, the reality of their lack of inclusiveness into other groups. Let's put it this way. When you look at the Obama machine and what they were able to accomplish in 2008 and then pretty much again in 2012, what you understand is that the Republican base is growing older, it's shrinking, it's dying off, and they're not doing anything to replenish it at a certain level. At some point in time, the Republican Party has to move past the rich white vote over the age of 55, and the male vote at that. When the Democratic Party wins women, wins blacks by about a 95-5 margin, when they could pull in Hispanics at about 70%, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to envision a path to the presidency for a Republican. Something has to change dramatically. In terms of the candidates on the right side, the Republican side, that would have a possibility, I think a Rubio could, but I think he could end up getting flamed out in his primary. I think Mitt Romney might gear himself up for another run in 2016, and he might be a possibility, but the problem is he's more of the same type of candidate. Some of you on the internet might think of Rand Paul. I'm not sure if he's a good enough charismatic personality to get across some, at least some, of his attractive type of libertarian viewpoints. Christie would be kind of like that safest pick to me, even though he comes with his scandals and he comes with some questions about how he would do in the primaries. He would be that guy that would kind of fit that Roosevelt Republican mold that maybe could, be forceful and be willful and be able to impose his will and get things done that might be appealing to independent and moderate voters. From the Democratic side, a lot of the talk is obviously going to be about Hillary Clinton, and at this point in time, she is the candidate on that side. There's no question about it. In terms of another candidate that would potentially, put a crimp in her parade, I think it actually could be the senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. She's been somebody that's been viewed as a big-time financial reformer, viewed on the right side of that in a lot of cases. She's somebody that would appeal more to the liberal base than Hillary Clinton once you get past the name, because Elizabeth Warren has more progressive viewpoints than Hillary Clinton. A long way to go. I hope I clued you in a little bit there. And I'm not sure the next president has necessarily even emerged yet in terms of being a candidate. At Rob$32 finishes off this Q&A. Both Hulk Hogan and Naomi are drowning, and you can only save one. Who do you choose? Whew. I mean, one is Hulk Hogan. One is Naomi. I could put babies in one, but I can only be a Hulkamaniac for one. So no offense to Naomi. That's what she's supposed to be married for. So fuck her anyways. If I'm going to save one, I'm going to save the almighty Hulk Hogan, brother. Because I can ask him about body slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. We could talk about the Mega Powers colliding at WrestleMania 5. We could talk about the NWO. We could talk about Hogan and Rock at WrestleMania 18. Hogan and Vince at WrestleMania 19. We could talk about the New Orleans Silverdome for WrestleMania 30. I can't talk about that shit with Naomi in the same way. So, yes, it would be great to put a bunch of babies in her, but at the end of the day, Hulkamania rules and will rule forever. Thanks for tuning into this Q&A. I'll have another one coming up Wednesday. Submit your questions.